All right. Well, hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Ciaramella. I am the Seafood Safety and Technology Specialist with New York Sea Grant. I'd like to start off by making everyone aware that today's session is being recorded and will be posted on the resource webpage later this week. An email will be sent out to all who registered for today's event once the recording is posted. We're hosting this talk today to introduce producers to additional resources and provide insights into ways you can enhance your business and access capital. But before we get started, I would like to review some guidelines for participating in today's talk and share some background information on New York Sea Grant and the Seafood Processing and Marketing Task Force. This talk has been set up as a Zoom meeting, which allows participants to share video and audio to facilitate a more engaging and interactive question and answer session. However, we do ask that you keep yourself muted when not speaking. If you have questions, please feel free to share them in the chat box at any time. The chat box can be found in the Zoom control panel as depicted on this slide, or you can raise your hand using the reactions button shown here. During the question and answer session, we'll ask those who raise their hands to unmute and share their questions as we see them raised. Finally, please be respectful to our presenters and fellow participants as we share and learn today. For those of you not familiar with New York Sea Grant is one of 34 university-based programs under NOAA's National Sea Grant College Program. New York Sea Grant is a cooperative program between the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Cornell University, and the SUNY system. For nearly 50 years, New York Sea Grant has worked to support novel research of use to coastal communities and economies, and has provided technical support through multidisciplinary extension and education programming. The map on this slide highlights our 8 offices located throughout the state, and you can learn more about who we are and what you do on the New York Sea Grant website at www.nyseagrant.org. And I paste that in the chat. I'd also like to highlight that we're celebrating our 50th year serving New York's coastal communities, so please be on the lookout for 50th anniversary events and activities that will begin this fall. In response to the pandemic, New York Sea Grant initiated the Seafood Processing and Marketing Task Force to begin exploring a variety of existing alternative marketing strategies and how New York producers might be able to take advantage of them to enhance their business models, expand into new markets, and access new buyers for their products. The task force was comprised of industry, agency, NGOs, and academic partners with a focus on seafood in New York. Last month, we presented a series of resources that were developed to help producers understand the alternative markets that exist for seafood in New York, provide the information producers need to assess their ability and interest in accessing these markets, and provide them with the knowledge necessary to adjust their practices to effectively access them. A recording of this session is available online at www.nyseagrant.org/seafood-guides. Today's talk will focus on additional resources specific to supporting and enhancing your business through business planning and accessing capital as a New York seafood producer. I would now like to quickly introduce our speakers for today and then hand it over to them to do more thorough introduction of themselves, their organization, and their resources. Our first speaker will be Gary Pereira, a business program specialist with the United States Department of Agriculture. Second will be Matthew Mazarakis with Farm Credit East. Our third speaker will be Robert Paiota with the Long Island branch of the Small Business Administration. And our final speaker will be Gifty Ostrander with the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you. Gary, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will go ahead and start the presentation. Share, let's see. All right. And Michael, if there's any problems with my presentation or the volume, let me know and I can make adjustments on my end.
Okay.
So my name is Gary Pereira. Thank you everyone for coming to this event. And I'm a business program specialist and also an energy coordinator with USDA Rural Development. I not only administer the renewable energy efficiency programs for most of New York. I also cover the value added producer grant program, which is a grant program for ag producers, including harvesters, to enter into value-added activities. So if you were a fishing operation, you were looking to sell your own, um, cuts of fish directly to consumers under your own branding. These are kind of projects that we would cover under the value-added producer grant program. As part of the program to apply, you do need to have, for the most part, a business plan as part of your application. And actually, this is a good time of year for me to present on this because we're just finishing up this past fiscal year of applications. So I have a laundry list of complaints, I'd say, to people and mistakes that most businesses make when they're doing their business plan. So hopefully you'll be able to take some information from this and ensure that when you're doing your business plan, you're making sure you're hitting on the right topics. Nothing's ever perfect. If somebody were to ask me to write a business plan, I'd probably not do very well at it. I'm sure it's easy to be the judge of something and not do it right yourself. But at least these are going to be tips for you out there for what we see, at least at USDA through the program. I'm going to try to make them relevant to the industry. So I'm not an expert and usually I'm a jack of all trades. So I apologize if I sound redundant or too generalized. But basically, I want to split this up in some do's and don'ts on business planning. So the first one, and obviously, if you're watching this or listening to this, you're probably aware. Reach out to the Small Business Development Center or the or your local SCORE chapter for assistance. They're a free resource out there, and they have a wealth of knowledge, not only in business planning but understanding other aspects and contacts to reach out to. So they're a very invaluable resource to have out there. The other thing is keep your business plan a living document. So just completing it once and then throwing it into a corner or a save file on your computer and never looking at it again isn't going to do you much good. The business planning, while it does help lenders and funders, it's also for your own benefit as well to understand and think out your project itself. A lot of times we'll get people through our value added program who say, wow, this is very difficult to apply to, but it did force me to actually have to sit down and plan my project. And it did help me by doing that process, as much as, nobody really wants to do it because it's not easy. We want to see financial projections in your business plan to say to see that you've thought out, that these are going to be financially viable projects that you're looking to get into. A lot of times we see business plans that don't include financial projections or maybe include just a paragraph in them. We'd like to see breakdowns if you can do them monthly, if you could do them, annually, that depending on the business. For example, some businesses, especially in the seafood industry, are seasonal. So we might want to see quarterly breakdowns of financial projections or even monthly. Breaking down your projected sales, not just including an overall number, including a breakdown of, okay, we intend to do this many pounds, this many, this unit of measurement, per day, per week, or per month. And this is the projected price per unit that we'll be receiving for our product. Some sort of detailed breakdown in your business plan will go a long way helping people looking at it to understand the business better, and to make sure that you're actually making projections that make sense. Some people might have projections that they couldn't realistically actually meet, and when they break it down, you can see that in there. So understanding and breaking down your projections are very important. Include a sources and uses of funds in your business plan. For example, if you're going to be purchasing equipment or do some sort of construction project, understanding the actual sources of funds and the uses of funds is very important, and having that on one table definitely goes a long way to helping people understand your project. So just by saying you have a $3 million project, we want to know, where's that money going? Have you properly thought out all of the expense items, and where's the money coming from to pay for it? Are you expecting it all to come from one source? Are you expecting some to come in from your own pocket, from a lender, from an economic development agency, from some grant funding? These are important items that most people want to see in the business plan. And understanding the importance of working capital. So, one of the biggest failures of most small businesses and most businesses in general is not properly planning working capital needs, and that's basically money that you have to run your day-to-day operations. So basically, money to keep the lights on, to have your employees paid, to purchase inventory, to purchase you know uh, uh, s- um, inventory in the sense of not only um, maybe some sort of food or ingredients, but also your packaging material, your labels, and other things. So understanding that most businesses do not do a very good job at estimating that, especially with new ventures. Um, so working with your small business development center and understanding that when you're looking at financing from a lender for a piece of equipment, it might be a good idea at that point to talk with your lender about a line of credit. And that's something that I'll leave it up to Farm Credit to talk a little bit more about. But having that line of credit available to you in case you run into problems with your business venture, it's very important. Understanding a SWOT analysis, which basically means your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats in your industry, and having that in your business plan to understand that you've thought out each of the areas, both pros and cons, to a reader would be very important. The review in the RMA industry data, I'm going to go into that in a minute. But for most lenders, traditional lenders, I'll say, who are not experts in a certain industry, most of the time they'll go to the RMA data and look at each specific industry there that you may be asking them to lend to, so they can understand what are the issues or the pitfalls to understand when lending to this specific industry. And yes, the seafood industry does have a lot. It's a very it's got a lot of items to be concerned about, and I'll show you what a typical report will look like. And explaining the experience of management and understanding, here's the experience of what we have, or if we don't have experience, we're looking at working with certain contractors to fill the void. For example, if you're looking into a venture that's going into, you want additional marketing in it, if you have a new product, but you don't have the marketing expertise, have you hired a company that's going to help you fill that void? Also another piece here more recently is understanding the ability to hire employees, and I think this is probably something that the seafood industry has probably had a problem with prior to what we're dealing with right now. But understanding and explaining in your business plan how you intend to ensure that you can keep and retain employees, especially during a time like this, would definitely is definitely going to help you. Now, some of the don'ts to do on a business plan: don't just rush plans to meet a requirement. While it does help you get a loan, I mean, it's there to help you put your idea down, put your business venture down on paper, and it's really there to help you as well. If you're going to have a pitfall, you should have it while you're writing your business plan, so you can plan for it then, and not while you're actually implementing your project. Don't just guess expenses. For example, if you're going out there and you're looking to put together a financial projection, looking at getting estimates for certain items. If you need to have packaging material or labels, or if you're looking to hire employees, understanding what rates things are going for, and how many units or how many employees you're going to need to hire, and how many hours they're going to need to work, and making sure you can show that you've done your homework there. This year, when we were grading applications, we had a lot of applicants who were looking at doing home delivery of CSA food boxes but then in their business plan, they were just saying, well, we're going to estimate $5 per box delivery fee. And they didn't go beyond that. What they were, so explaining, what your, especially important parts of your business plan, you know, those are crucial aspects when somebody's looking at it. Another aspect is, for example, this year we had somebody who was looking to sell their products online and kind of blew over the point of sale system that they were going to use on their website. So, with no real information there, we're left wondering, well, do they really have a plan, or are they hoping to have one by the time they implement their plan? Don't fill your business plan with fluff. A lot of people like to fill it up with useless things that, it sounds great, but is it really going to help us understand your plan better? Don't underestimate your competition. Understanding that if you're going to enter a certain market, don't expect everyone that you typically compete with to just stand by idly and watch you increase your sales. They're going to undercut you in some form or fashion, whether it's they might market a similar product, they might undercut you in price for a time being, and so on and so forth. So don't ever expect your competition just to sit idly by while you do well, especially if you're doing a venture that is lucrative. Don't handwrite a business plan. It's very difficult, people reviewing things, especially if you have messy handwriting. We have some people out there who really like to handwrite their applications. While it's allowed, we much prefer using some sort of word processor program. And don't assume the reader is an expert in industry like myself. I'm not an expert in the seafood industry, but when you're writing a business plan, understand that you might have to explain things a little more that you would expect somebody else who might be in the same exact industry to know exactly. But a lender might not know certain items that especially relate to the seafood industry. And finally, I think I'm going to try to switch this over. I know I'm probably going to spend one more minute and no more. So let's see. So here, just to give you an idea, can you see this, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. So these are actually, let's see if I can zoom them actual size. So these are RMA reports on. I pulled two different industries, so the fishing industry and the seafood preparation industry. Seafood product preparation and packaging. Michael, I'm assuming this is the audience that I'll be hitting here, or am I out in left field on these items?
Yeah, it's fishermen and farmers were the audience, but seafood industry in general. But yeah,
okay.
we could wrap up in a minute or less.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, when a lender's looking at things, they're going to pull reports, and and these are things your business plan should address. And so, items in these reports are showing that the industry is very cyclical. It's difficult to find employees, or it's difficult to retain employees. There's some items dealing with fresh, with actual fishermen versus farm fisheries. So there, and there's also price sensitivity being an item of concern. So these are all items that you want to look at when you're looking into creating a business plan, to make sure you address them in your business plan. And these reports can also be found at your local library as well. So if you ever go to the I forget what the resource center of most large libraries, they'll have RMA data available, and you can look it up for your industry. So that's all I have for now. So I'm going to hand it over to Matthew over at Farm Credit, who's going to be talking about their programs, and we'll go from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
It's all you, Matthew.
All righty, perfect. How's it going, everyone? My name is Matt Mazarakis. I work at Farm Credit East as a loan officer and down in the Riverhead branch. And I assume most of you, I mean, there may be some people from, across New York State, but that's located right between the North and the South Fork of Long Island. So I'll start it off, just a quick overview about Farm Credit. Farm Credit is a co-op. It's owned by its shareholders, meaning we're not publicly traded, but if you were to go through the whole, application process, eventually take out some stock in the company, doesn't go up and down. And through that, you're entitled to some benefits through our business, but enough about that. Farm Credit, we're really here to support agriculture, both land and sea. We serve a variety of industries, being greenhouses, nurseries, vegetable farmers, fruit growers, and then on the seaside, oyster growers, many different fishermen across different industries, So there's a wide variety of agriculture that we serve, and that's really our bread and butter and our specialty. So after going through an application process, people typically ask what are different products or different things that Farm Credit East can offer. It's really tailored to your unique needs, being that, so say if you were a fisherman, you're looking to purchase a fishing vessel and some permits, that would be our term loan product, whereas, other, what Gary mentioned prior about the lines of credits, I can get into that in a little bit, but there's pretty much three different types. There's lines of credits, term loans, and then there's just long-term loans for different purchases, real estate purchases, whatever it may be. So typically a capital line of credit, there's two different lines of credits, one being a capital, one being an operating line of credit. A capital line of credit is typically used to purchase machinery and equipment. You can also do some capital improvements to the fishing vessel if you're doing improvements to, say, a marina, some dockage. That's what you would use for a capital line of credit. And typically, this ranges from a term of 3 years to 7 years. And this is a revolving line of credit. So as you pay proceeds to the line of credit, availability, and you can draw back on it. On the flip side, there's an operating line of credit. Operating line of credits, they're typically used to purchase inputs like fuel, could be operating expenses, insurance, whatever it may be in the beginning of the year. And then, your bulk sales come in for your fishing trip, and then you would pay down the line of credit. And this operating line of credit has a requirement for you to pay down to zero balance each year. And that's the way pretty much the operating line of credit works. And then on the flip side, there's the term loans. This is used different things. You could purchase real estate. Like I said prior, purchasing permits, additional scalp quota. You could put it under a term loan. There's no revolving funds. It's a one-time purchase, and it's just continued pay down. This ranges from really depending on the asset that you're purchasing, but the term of the loan really ranges from 3 years to 30 years, 30 years being any type of real estate purchasing, whereas, I would say a typical term for, say, a fishing vessel, depending on the year, the engine, the hours, that kind of stuff, you're probably looking about a 7 to a 10-year term. If it's a permit, you could get a little bit longer since they're more valuable, and they're not depreciating and sitting in water like fishing vessels. So there's all different ways and routes to secure these loans. You can use equity from another fishing vessel. So say you're looking to do a capital line of credit and you're looking to purchase a additional scallop quota. Then we could use, say, a prior scallop quota that you already own and use the equity from that as the cash down payment towards the purchase of the new scallop quota. This is just one specific example, but this helps kind of limit the cash down payment and leaves you with a little bit more liquidity to operate. It tailors to each kind of need for each person, but that can change. I'd say lastly, for a down payment, for a fishing vessel, typically around 30 to 40% down payment. For any type of permits, additional quota, you're looking around probably similar, that 30 to 40% down payment. And then lastly, I'll just get into rates and just wrap things up. But there's two really different rate products. We do a variable rate. It's based on the Federal Reserve. So Federal Reserve announces that they're going to increase rates by 25 basis points. We would mirror it the following month. But I would say for an average borrower, this changes for each borrower depending on their overall financial strength. But this is anywhere from, I would say, 3.5% to 4%. And then a fixed rate would generally be about 1.5 to 2% higher, so about 5 to 6%. So that's a little bit about farm credit, a couple products that we offer, some typical things that we do with the fishermen and oyster farmers. We finance different things from marinas to fishing vessels to permits to additional quota. So it's if someone's looking to do a big overbuild, a rebuild of their current fishing vessel, that's something in the wheelhouse too. So, I'd be happy to answer any other questions when question time comes. And with that, it's pretty much all set, Michael.
All right, thanks, Matthew. And so we'll pass next to Robert.
Yes, good afternoon all. Rob Pihota here. I am the branch office manager for the Small Business Administration here on Long Island. Welcome everybody for being here. Kudos to everybody for being here. Those that are watching now or watching the recording later on, I commend you. You could do a lot of things, but you chose to actually learn what's available out there in the fishing business building space. And so good for you. There's an old saying I love to quote on these kind of calls, and I'm not a big fan of trite phrases and old sayings, but if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So bonding together in these kind of events, as well as with chambers, et cetera, and co-ops, makes a lot of sense. The SBA is all about helping businesses, small business start, grow, expand, and in times like this, recover during some of the challenges we're all facing with the pandemic. So what Gary said earlier about business planning and those kind of things, man, he was right on. We could have dropped the mic right there. Do that stuff and you're golden. Hopefully, though, some of you recognize that it's not as easy as it sounds. So where do you go to get help in doing some of these things? Where do you go to get help in securing financing if money's just not laying around to pour into your own business? And that's what I'll talk about a little bit, very briefly. The SBA has what we call resource partners. And when I'm done, I'll put a pretty useful tool in the chat box you can utilize, and you can really find out where you can find help at a distance for what you're trying to accomplish. He mentioned RMA data at the libraries. I'll give you another option as far as how to find that kind of critical information out. But when you're looking to, I don't care if you've been in business for 25 years, the game has changed. And we all know that based on the pandemic. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. So we have what we call resource partners. And it's up to you where you want to start. And you can go to everybody. I don't really care, but there's help out there. And if you choose not to get maybe a second opinion, third opinion, then that's up to you. But we have what we call SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. You can go online, you can go to Google to find out where they are, call my office. That's fine. But SCORE is comprised of a bunch of folks who have been in business for a number of years. They've been in principal positions, they've run a business, or they've been an active member in the planning of a business. And how cool would it be to talk to somebody like that on the phone, on a Zoom call, and maybe one of these days in person, so you can really understand, what they learned during their discovery phase of running their business. I'd rather learn from their mistakes than make my own mistakes and learn the hard way. But again, that's your choice. We also have a group that Gary didn't mention called Women's Business Centers. And if you're a woman-owned business, or maybe just the sound of that makes a lot of sense to you, we have women business centers around the metro area. You can find through us, and it'll be in the chat room momentarily, where they don't deal just with women-owned businesses, but they can certainly help. So if certification as a woman-owned business appeals to you, that's another choice for you. We also have VBOC. Now, you can't run a federal operation without acronyms, right? So VBOC is Veteran Business Outreach Center. And we have, right, currently in the New York State area, we have one located in Albany. And you contact Amy Amoroso by email or Zoom, and she can coach you with some issues that might be particularly germane to a veteran-owned business. And you can utilize some of those tools. So we're not going to teach you how to write a business plan today, but we're going to hopefully tell you where, if it's important to you, you may want to think about it. If you want to get a loan following the pandemic, part of the capital acquisition process will be to explain to lenders what you're going to do differently if a pandemic happens again. We have these tools called 7A loan or 504 loans that are very popular. I won't steal the thunder of the next speaker, but you need to be prepared to write a pretty solid business plan. It should not cause a lot of agony to do so. Some of the most famous businesses on the planet have actually started their businesses by getting a business plan help from the SBA. One of which, not too many years ago, two knuckleheads from this area kind of went north to start their business. They thought they were going to start a pizzeria. They ended up pivoting to ice cream. And yes, it was Ben and Jerry who actually went to an SBA location, got a template for a business plan, didn't copy it, but learned from it and ended up securing startup capital. But without further ado, I want to pass it over to the next speaker. Gifty Ostrander represents the Small Business Development Center, which is another resource partner we have at the SBA. They do amazing things, whether it be writing business plans, getting research for you to sort of understand where the market is going in your area. What better way than to sort of have somebody else help you do some of the research? They won't do the work for you, but they can certainly help guide you and put the tools in your hands. And they do a lot of great work. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to Gifty, who is a certified business advisor from Stony Brook SBDC. And I'm sure she's going to wow you with information on how to get to your next step. So Gifty, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. Gifty, you're muted. Gifty, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you for having me, Michael, and thank you everyone for taking time to listen to us today. My presentation on access to capital is going to begin now. I'm from the New York State Small Business Development Center. We are at the Stony Brook University. And I'll go over a few of the things we do. We're funded by the SBA and the State University of New York. We offer support services to businesses. One of the primary areas we do this is offering direct counseling in the areas of business startup, business expansion, business plan development, loan information assistance. We offer marketing, social media marketing assistance, import, export. So we offer a wide range of services to small businesses. We offer one-on-one counseling. We offer referrals to consultants and service providers. So if you're looking for a loan, we'll help you with the business plan. We have a network that we keep with a lot of financial institutions, and we'll be able to set you up with the appropriate lender, depending on what your needs are. We also offer workshops and seminars on business education. And why do we do this? We love small businesses. We want to help business owners and industry leaders solve problems. So we'll move on to the agenda today. I'll basically cover the funding that has been provided and is still ongoing for disaster assistance due to the pandemic. So I'm going to talk about the additional funding provided by the, was announced by NOAA in in March, I believe it was, by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. We also have SBA disaster assistance programs. We're going to talk about the economic injury disaster loan, the SBA debt relief program, the SBA express bridge loan. And then also we're going to cover the New York State resources that's available. We have a new program that just launched. The portal actually opened on July 10th for applications, and that is the New York State COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program. So I'll just give a brief overview of all these programs, and this definitely will give existing businesses access to capital. And then we'll also briefly talk about startup businesses as well. Okay, so the additional $255 million in assistance funding was announced, as I said, in March. And the eligible applicants are basically commercial fishermen, charter businesses, qualified aquaculture operations. We also have processors, other fishery-related businesses, and much more. And New York has been allocated $5.7 million. They're also hoping to receive funding to assist the Great Lake fisheries sector as well here in New York. Now, to receive assistance, participants must demonstrate economic revenue losses greater than 35%. So what is happening right now is the spend plans are being developed right now. DEC is working in cooperation with NOAA as well as the ASMFC to develop a second New York spend plan for this additional funding. So hopefully it should come out soon, and then we'll have more information on how the eligibility for funding would be determined and how the distribution of the funds would be made after the spend plans have been completed. Okay, so now we talk about the SBA disaster assistance programs. We have the economic injury disaster loan. It's a loan program. It's not a grant. It has to be paid back, but then it's a very low interest direct loan program. SBA is accepting applications right now, and small businesses, including agricultural businesses and private nonprofit organizations, are all eligible to apply for this loan. Agricultural businesses with 500 or fewer employees are eligible to apply. So if you need our funding, this would be a very good way to go. It's a very streamlined loan application, and that is the site where you go to apply. Now, the terms of the loan, 3.75, so very low interest rate, maturity 30 years, no prepayment penalty or fees. Collateral definitely is required for loans over $25,000. And there is also a personal guarantee requirement if the loan is over $200,000. The deferment period has been extended. It was extended in March. So no payments due until 2022, but if you're a borrower and you choose to make payments, you could do that as well. The amount available is 24 months of economic injury. Maximum loan amount is $500,000. So if you received an idle loan previously and you want to increase your loan amount, you can do that, and there is a way to do that. You could either contact us or you could contact any of the resource partners that Rob spoke about from the SBA, and they will be able to assist you with a loan increase. The idea, having the economic injury disaster loan, it's mainly to assist businesses to meet financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met had the disaster not occurred. So because of the disaster, you have the shortfall, and the idle loan is there to fill in the gap. So funds can be used for working capital, normal operation expenses, and Sorry about that. And we have examples of the operating expenses that you could use it for: rent, utilities, fixed debt payments, and so forth. All right, so I'll move to the SBA Debt Relief program. Under this program, the SBA will automatically pay the principal, interest, and fees of 7A loans, 504 loans, or microloans that have been issued prior to September 27, 2020. So for 6 months, the SBA will pay the interest, the principal, and the fees if you are already in, you know, a loan program under these different groups of loan items that I mentioned, 7A, 504, and microloans. The debt relief does not apply to loans made under the EIDL program, so that should be made clear. You can only get debt relief payments to assist you if you already have a loan in motion issued prior to September 27, 2020. And I understand that with the onset of the Economic Aid Act, this period has been extended beyond the 6-month period, and the level of assistance has been extended. It will be dependent on loans that was approved, but will begin after February 1, 2021. So the September 27, 2020 deadline has been extended practically. That's what I'm trying to get at, but it would depend on how much funding is available. We have the SBA Express Bridge loans as well. So if you have applied for an economic injury disaster loan and you need money very quickly, you could get a bridge loan up to $25,000, and that would sustain you to fill in the gap whilst you wait for the outcome of your economic injury disaster loan. So up to $25,000 is a very fast turnaround time, and it can be repaid in full or in parts by proceeds from the EIDL loan that you receive. Okay, so we have also from the New York State level, we do have the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program. It provides grant funding to small and micro businesses and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations that have been impacted by the pandemic. So in order for you to get this grant, your business must be currently viable. You should have begun operations on or before March 1, 2019, and continue to be in operation as of the date of the application. So this site is where you go for information, for details on eligibility requirements, grant amounts, documentation requirements, and all that. The application process is also clearly detailed there. I want to switch screens now so we could go over a few of the details for this particular grant program. So let's see if I could do that. Okay. So I'm going to briefly go over the program and the application guide. Just quickly talk about what it's about. So these are the grant amounts that the award can be awarded to businesses. So if you have annual gross receipts from 25 to 49,999,000, then the grant amount would be $5,000. If your gross receipts are from 50,000 to 99,999, then it's 10,000 per business. And then anything beyond that, from 100,000 to $500,000, is 10% of gross receipts up to $50,000. So the definitions of what a small business is if you are a business incorporated in New York State, you're licensed, registered to do business in New York, you have 100 or less employees, you're considered a small business under this program. You're considered a micro business if you are registered, incorporated to do business here in New York, but you employ 10 or less persons. So any of these criteria, 100 or less employees, you are welcome to apply to the program. Now, eligibility, like I said before, you should have begun operations on or before March 1, 2019, and your business must be viable. And I'll go in detail on that. They have a way that you can determine viability. You should at least have a net income of $1, a minimum of $1. It's got to be positive for 2019 tax returns. Now, small businesses and micro businesses must have gross receipts of between 25 and 500,000, like I mentioned in the beginning, and you must demonstrate a positive net profit. Now, you should have at least experienced a 25% loss in annual gross receipts, right? Comparatively from the same period, 2019, you compare to 2020, and you should be able to demonstrate that 25% loss in annual gross receipts for you to be eligible to partake in this particular program. So we have additional information here. Priority will be given to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, including but not limited to minority and women-owned enterprises, you know, service disabled, veteran-owned businesses, and businesses that are located in communities that are considered economically distressed prior to March 1, 2020. Okay, and required documentation is listed out here. Gross receipts, you got to demonstrate, and that would come with income tax returns. They show you where on the tax returns you should look to determine if you're eligible, depending on the type of business registration you have. So if you're an LLC, the form would be an 1120, or if you're a partnership, they would expect to see a Form 1065 from you and so forth. Okay, so this goes on about the required documentation that would be required. I just want to go over the eligible uses of funds. So if you get the funding, it can be used for payroll costs. It can be used for commercial rent or mortgage payments, payment of local property or school taxes, insurance costs, utility costs, costs of personal protection equipment necessary to protect workers and consumer health and safety. You could use the funds for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning costs as well. The funds can be used for machinery or equipment costs, supplies, materials necessary for compliance with COVID-19, and so forth. So we got to bear in mind that the grants awarded under this program may not be used to repay or pay down any portion of a loan obtained through a federal COVID-19 relief package. So you can't use this money to go pay down a loan that you obtained through a federal relief program. So, basically this is what this program is offering to small businesses, micro businesses that have suffered losses during the pandemic. What I want to say is, if you're interested in any of these programs, by all means, please contact us so that we can assist you with the application process. If you're a new business and you cannot, participate in these programs because of the requirements, you can definitely come to the SBDC We can also work on a business plan. We can also work on, getting you situated with a lender. We're going over a checklist about what is required and getting you prepared for a startup loan as well. So definitely we will be able to assist you, whether you are an existing business or a startup business seeking funding. Do not hesitate to contact us so we can go over what is available and how best we can assist you. Thank you. I think that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Gifty. And thank you, Gary, Rob, and Matthew for sharing with us today. We do have a few minutes for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please do share them in the chat box or raise your hand and you can ask them now. Not seeing any. So while we're waiting to see if there's any questions from the audience, I have one quick question for everybody. So if somebody is looking to either expand their business, start a new business, or simply sustain the business they currently have, what should be their first step? So you provided a lot of resources. So what do they do first? And is it different for the different individuals? Anybody? Well, Gifty, I see you big on the screen. You want to start?
I'm eager to answer, but I was waiting to see if anyone was going to. From my point of view, I think market research is very important. You got to understand the industry in which you're operating. So you should know the market. Don't underestimate your competitors. I heard that said. I believe one of the speakers had mentioned that people normally think it's going to be easy, it's going to be a nice ride, and they underestimate their competitors, especially if it's a profitable venture. So whoever said that was spot on. You got to, do some research and know what your costs are, know what, cash flow requirements are going to be and things like that. So that's from my perspective.
To Gifty's point, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And this is an opportunity for people to really stop. I mean, you had to stop. I had to change course and assess, where are you? What is your financial position? What are your capabilities? Maybe it's smaller, maybe it's less aggressive now because you've got to rebuild, retool, or pivot as a favorite phrase right now. And that's where I think the positive situation is, because now is a time to logically, whether you seek help from somebody else or you use your trade professionals like your accountants, your bookkeepers, to really project out what your income and your revenue should be or can be. Plan it out now. Pick a couple of choices and figure out where you want to go. Get a good solid plan. It doesn't have to be business planning 101. It could be very simple, but figure out where you are, where you want to go. And I think this could be your finest hour, because a number of years ago, Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great. Great book. And in it, he makes the case for the biggest obstacle to being great is being good. A lot of people were doing okay before the pandemic, and they really weren't okay. They didn't secure enough capital in reserve, a number of things. But this is your time to plan out, assess, and the people like Gifty and Gary and Matthew, these are resources you can go to that, hey, can you take a look at my stuff? What's it look like? That's what I would do.
Thanks, Rob. Anybody else want to add anything?
Robert, you said you could find the RMA data somewhere beyond the library. Did you mention where you could find that?
Well, I don't want to steal Gifty's thunder, but what the and this is not a commercial for any one resource partner, but RMA data can be, number one, business libraries are great. By the way, and it was great, thanks for bringing that up. When you go to a library, go to the business section, and if you ask the business librarian for help, you mention RMA data, they will jump over the desk to help you. They love to be asked for help. They really do. That's their job, and nobody ever does. They think that librarians, all they do is walk around saying, shh. They want to help you. But what the SBDCs can do, I know firsthand because I ran an SBDC in Brooklyn for a number of years. When you use them as a consultant, as an advisor, they can to collect your questions and go to Albany through what they call a research network inquiry, they can find stuff for you, and they'll tap into RMA data to give you articles and research data sets that will blow your doors off. I call it Google on steroids. It would take all of us on the panel here about 7 or 8 years to find the kind of data they do. They use your tax dollars for some subscription services that can help you get RMA data and other allied data. Even census data can be sliced and diced to your benefit so you can plan effectively for next month, next year, next 5 years.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rob.
Perfect.
So we're running low on time, but Matthew, did you have something you wanted to add? No, you're good.
Nothing crazy. Just want to reiterate what Robert said. Just know your numbers inside and out. I mean, it's the biggest thing with some of our borrowers that they really think about, their product, and that's a big part of it. But also knowing your financials and knowing your margins and knowing your, ins and outs of projections and budgets and projections and everything is, the earlier you start doing it, the more successful and better you'll be set up for the future.
Great. Thanks, Matthew, and thanks again, everybody. So before we get going, I want to introduce a couple more resources. So, all right, thank you one more time, Gary, Matthew, Robert, and Gifty for joining us today and sharing their valuable insights and resources that are available to New York producers. Before wrapping up the session, I'd like to introduce some additional resources and opportunities. First, I'd like to remind everyone that the task force has created 3 regulatory guides, which outline the regulatory framework surrounding the catch or harvest of wild-caught seafood, farmed seafood, and bivalve mollusk and shellfish in New York. These guides are all available for free online at www.nyscgrant.org/seafood guides, which is linked in the chat now. To complement the regulatory guides and expand on some of the specific requirements outlined in them, a series of supplementary topical resource guides were developed to provide more detailed information on these topics. There are 9 of these topical resources in total, and they are also available for free online at www.nyscgrant.org/seafood guides. Next, I'd like to make you aware of the Empire State Development web portal that is dedicated to helping New York State businesses recover from the pandemic. This site provides additional information on various state and federal assistance programs that are currently available, and you can find the link for that in the chat box now. As part of future New York Sea Grant COVID response to assist New York producers interested in expanding to new markets, New York Sea Grant anticipates being able to offer free seafood HACCP training to interested producers. More guidance on this potential opportunity will be made available later this year, but anyone who is interested can reach out to me now, and we'll make sure to keep you informed as training opportunities are explored. Knowing who is interested in this opportunity will help us to determine where and how the training should be offered if possible. New York Sea Grant, in collaboration with Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning, Cordell Cooperative Extension, Suffolk County Marine Program, and the Long Island Commercial Fishing Association, are currently collecting responses as the start of an annual commercial fishing survey to help assess industry needs and challenges, how they change over time, and effectively convey this information to community leaders to inform future programming and efforts. If you are a commercial fisherman in New York, please take some time to assist in these efforts and share with your colleagues. The survey is linked in the chat box now. And finally, the Suffolk County Agriculture and Fishing e-newsletter is a weekly listing of up-to-date economic opportunities specific to the agricultural and fishing industries. Each edition includes information related to grant and loan financing opportunities, marketing opportunities, research grant opportunities, educational webinars and workshops, committee meeting notifications, and updates on important environmental, health, safety, labor, and licensing regulations. Follow the link in the chat box now to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, whether that be regarding the current resources or inquiries about new tools and resources that might be helpful to you and your business. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will follow up with an email once this recording is posted on the research webpage. Thank you all. And thanks again to our speakers and our assembly and senators for joining us today, as well as their offices and representatives.